welcome to today's Log Analysis Made Easy, lame video about common mistakes that are done with CSV lookups. There'll be a following video on common mistakes made with KV lookups, but the focus on this video, to keep it focused, will be on CSVs. And what I have done is I've created an app called Lame Lookups, and that Lame Lookup contains a CSV lookup. We can go see what's in there. If I just come over, there's my KV, here's my CSV. If I run this, I've got three results: Foobar, Fred Farkle, Susan Sparkle. Those are my lookups. I've built it. I'm ready to deploy it from a deployment server. That's where these mistakes occur, is using a deployment server. Believe me, you'll want to be able to push things out of the deployment server, but if you don't get these gotchas, it'll be very frustrating. So let's go over this. I'm just going to quickly, I've got to go to my deployment server. I've got my lame lookups, and I'm pushing it out to this dev box. And if we go over to my instance over here, this is where it deployed. Everything should look fine. There's my KV. We're not doing KVs this time. We're doing lookup CSV. So I'm now on that new box. I have it. Perfect. I use a deployment server. It pushed the app out, and I have the lookup. Sweet. Let's do something like this. And I'm going to make a brand new result, and I want to put it in there. So I'm going to make results. Eval A equals do not B equals delete. I have a choice. I could choose to append this, or I could choose to just overwrite what's already in this lookup. For the sake of dramatic effect, I'm going to erase what's in there and not put an append equals true. If I put append equals true, I'll have 4 rows, but if I don't, I'll have 3. I mean, I'll have just this one entry. So if I do this, when I now run this command, and if I look at it, I have the 3 that came over from here, from the deployment server, are gone. And I just have this one entry. Okay, that's cool. And let's just say I go and I do my work on this search head. I make all these efforts to fill up this lookup, and I get it set up for this specific instance. Now let's show. I'm going to go on to my machine here, and I'm in deployment apps. I'm going to make a change to my app. So I'm over here on my deployment server, and this has that lookup. The lookups are now different. The deployment server has a different lookup than the local instance. That's all right. That's what I'm good with that. I want to be able to update my lookup. But if I come in here and we have this placeholder.xml, I'm going to move placeholder.xml to placeholder.xml.bak. Now my dashboard, not my lookup, a dashboard has been modified. Really, all I've done is remove this so it doesn't run anymore. Now if I do op Splunk bin Splunk reload deploy server, so this is now saying, hey, Splunk, I've made a change to my app. Go out and verify that. Go get this set up so that the clients will go in and upload, grab the latest version from the deployment server. And all it should do, right? It's going to just remove that dashboard from this instance. Right now, I'm now on the client that calls into the deployment server. I had the dashboard called placeholder. Let's refresh this. Still there. Still there. I may have to pause it because it does take a minute. You got to get the system to call in. I'm going to put the video on pause, and then we'll come back once it's updated. Okay, so just make sure we have things clear. The right side here is my client, the system reaching out to the deployment server. These are my deployment server tabs. Anyway, we go back to the dashboards. We can see now that that placeholder app is gone. So the deployment client was notified that there have been changes. It reaches out to the deployment server. It pulls down those changes, and the dashboard disappears. Now the question is, what happened to my CSV? Does it still have just this entry? What did it do? If I run it, I now have 3 entries again. My entry that I put is gone, and the 3 that were originally in the lookup are there. And I use the example of filling out the lookup from the deployment server, but you can have a blank lookup and it'll do the exact same thing. What it'll do is it'll just wipe your lookup on the client and you'll just have a blank lookup. This can be very frustrating if you need to, the reason you put a lookup, a lot of the time, sometimes it's just for reference, you put a lookup in there so that the analyst can add things and improve the lookup. If at any point the lookup deviates from the deployment client's lookup, it'll override it. There are things on the deployment client you can do, on the deployment server you can do. For example, by default, the local folder does not get overwritten. So if you make sure you publish all of your apps and you make your changes in the default, what analysts do out on the client in the local directory sticks around. But lookups don't exist in that paradigm. And so if I go and I look here at, let's do a listing ls. Where am I? Okay, one more. Down one more. Notice I have a default folder local, and then I have a lookups. And so if I go into the lookups, that lookup doesn't have, well, this is what it should look like in default, and here's what it should look like in local. Don't override each other. Doesn't exist. So there is a server class config change that we can make, and I'm going to demo that now so that you can avoid this CSV problem. All right, so here is the Splunk documentation for updating exclude content. That's the stanza you're going to do. Exclude from update. Basic principle. It is outlined. You're going to go in the server class where you define your app, and you're going to exclude from update and call it out. Let's actually show that in practice. So I'm going to jump on to my Splunk instance. I need to go into server class. It tells me here it's part of the serverclass.conf. My serverclass.conf is going to be in ops Splunk etc system local, because that's my system local directory where I've made changes. If I go there, there's my server class, and if I go by serverclass.conf, I scroll all the way down till I find the stanza I'm looking for. And so the way you're going to look at it is you're going to find the server class : the name of your server class. So if we go back here, we can see that I named my server class lame lookups. So there it is, Splunk server class lame lookups. And then it goes : lame lookups, and that's the name of the app. And you can see there's my app lame lookups. This was already in existence. You do not have to write any of this in. If you don't have this in, well, you don't have an app, you don't have anything setting. I'll briefly cover this. This allows you to restart Splunk, web, restart Splunk D, and whether the app is enabled or disabled. That comes by default, written there. I just wrote the exclude from update, and then they want you to put the app root. If you look at the app root, is basically telling it, and it is required, that, hey, wherever this app is located, use it. So you don't spell that out. And it actually says below, don't call it out. You need to use approot. And then I called out, they use lookups cider.csv. In my case, I did lookups deployment lookup example.csv. And we can see deployment lookup example.csv. That's the name of it. So that's all I've done. I put that exclude statement in this time. I close it. I need to restart Splunk, and then I need to make a change to my deployment server to make sure that things have actually occurred to that app. I already restarted Splunk because I don't want to sit here and wait for it to take forever. That's why I already put the stanza in for it. That stanza did not exist when I was demoing all the things failing. So let's go to my directory, see ops, Splunk, etc, deployment apps, lame, lookups, local data, UI, views. We will move placeholder.xml to placeholder.xml.back. Okay. And now I just need to reload the deployment server. And after it reloads, if we wait a minute, it should show up over here. I may end up having to pause it to wait for it to pop up here, but right now it says that I have the dashboard. Still there, we will wait. All right, the app has a remove placeholder. In the previous example, my lookup then return back to the original three over here. Oops, the original three here. Let's see what happens now. It did not overwrite. This keeps my lookup intact. So if I want to build a lookup, have it in an app, deploy it out to systems, and then be able to modify it at the local site at those clients, you'll need to make sure you put in that exclude from update. And otherwise, it'll continue to overwrite all the work that you put in. I hope this is helpful. I hope that you learned something from this and that we can help you avoid making these mistakes. If you like this, subscribe to the channel. I always appreciate comments down below. If there's stuff you'd like me to cover, put comments down below. I don't know how quick, I don't always get to it immediately, but I love to build my content based off the stuff you're asking for. Anyway, hope to see you around.